Hello, my DIY friends. Today I'm doing this dresser set that I got recently off of Facebook Marketplace. I've already taken out the top dresser, so it's not missing. It's just inside waiting for me to start the project. When I bought it, the hardware that's missing right here and on the other places was there. But when I loaded it into my trailer and transported it to my home, which was about a 30-minute drive from where I picked this up, they came loose and I found pieces of them in my trailer. So yeah, so I lost the majority of the hardware, which is okay. I wasn't planning on keeping it anyway. And then the other significant issue is this gouge. It's a pretty deep gouge in the top. So I'll be going over how to fix that as well. But stay tuned because I'm really excited about what I have planned for this project. Just gonna fill it in for the most part and let it dry. I'm not gonna try to mold it yet. I'm just going to try to fill the big space. So I'm putting it in and then I'm scraping it against the edge of that gap, because I don't want it protruding out. I just want it to fill in the majority of the gap as like a base, I guess you could say. And then I'll fill in the detail a little bit later once that's dry. There. So the little base piece that I put in here is almost dry. I push on it, I could probably make it move, but it's dry enough. I want to get in these little detail areas before I sand. I've already wiped this all down with hot soapy water, so we're ready to go. Okay, so today what I want to do is get this gouge taken care of. So the putty that I put on before is completely dry, it's hard. So what I want to do is put the final coat, I guess, or the final layer on there. But I want to make sure that it matches the rest of the dresser top exactly. So what I'm going to do is create a mold. And in order to do that, I've got just some Vaseline or petroleum jelly, and I'm gonna put it all over a spot that is not busted. And then what I'm going to do is pour hot glue on that spot to make a mold. And it is gonna damage this a little bit, but it's okay because I will be painting it. So I just wanna make sure that I get the petroleum jelly really coated on that spot, just so the hot glue does not stick to the dresser. And then I've got my hot glue. and I'm going to apply very generously. Okay, so now the glue, I let the glue dry for at least an hour just to make sure that it was completely dry, and then I kind of pried it off of here. You can see there is a little bit of paint damage, but okay, my kids' toys are going off by themselves. So now you can see I've got a perfect mold for this edge piece right here. And once I sand this down, that will take care of that. I've also mixed up a little bit of quick wood. I could have used the same putty that I had before, but I didn't have any left over, so quick wood works just fine. And this is probably a lot more than I actually need. So again, I'm going to use the petroleum jelly, and this time I'm going to put it on the inside of the mold, because while I want the mold to shape the quick wood, I do not want it to stick permanently. So I'm just going to put a very generous amount on the mold. So that's that. Take maybe half of that, kind of shape it, or start the shape, I guess I should say. Yeah, I made way too much of that. That's okay. And then I'm going to take my mold and push it on there as tightly as I can. Okay. And then I'm going to gently peel that. Scrape away what I can. And then that I'm actually gonna leave to dry. And I will sand that once it's fully dry. Okay, here is I've sanded it. Here is the gap in the dresser, and then the damage from using the hot glue is also been sanded away. So here we go, time to prime the dresser. I want to make sure that after cleaning, I scuff up the surface of this drawer really, really well. Like I want some pretty deep scratches to be in the surface, so that what I put on the drawer will bond even that much better. So I am going to be using a pretty abrasive pad. Normally I wouldn't use 80 grit, but I am today because I want to scratch this up pretty substantially. So break all my drawers in the process.
So I've been really inspired by a lot of dressers that I've seen lately that have these really beautiful, intricate carved wood fronts on their drawers. And so I wanted to figure out a way that I could dupe these or make them myself. So I started with this wood sculpt putty that is a lot like quickwood. It comes in two parts. So you grab equal sized portions of each of the parts and then you put them together and then you mix them really, really, really well. You want to make sure that you can't really see any piece of the individual parts. After mixing it really well, I'm taking my 4-inch drywall knife or putty knife, and I'm spreading it into a thin layer, and I'm pushing it pretty hard down into the wood grain, just making sure that it really, really sticks in there. Next, I'm taking some clean water and just getting my hands wet so that I can smooth out the surface of the putty that I just laid out, just smoothing it down a little bit. Then I'm going to take a flat wooden roller that's been soaked in water and just flatten that out a little bit more. What I'm trying to do here is just get as even of a surface as possible. And you do want to keep that roller wet. So it's kind of like working with clay. You don't want the clay to stick to the roller, so you're going to want to keep wetting the roller and then just smoothing out the surface of the putty. I was really careful to make sure that the surface became as flat as possible. And once I was happy with how smooth and flat it was, I let it sit for about 15 minutes before I moved on to the next step. Okay, now for the fun part. I found this textured roller, which I think the true purpose of it is to make cookies, but it had this really beautiful, intricate design on it, and it's a wood roller, so it actually imprints a little bit of a wood grain into the pattern. So I made sure that I was staying consistent with the pattern as I rolled it across. I am putting quite a bit of pressure downward on the roller to make the pattern stand out a little bit, or to stand out better. And I just took my time, rolled it through really slowly, and I think it came out looking really, really beautiful and intricate. And the best part about it is this is wood putty, so this is going to dry to a solid form and it's going to be drillable, sandable, just like wood.
Don't be surprised if after your first pass you have some low spots. It's okay. The good thing about this putty, or yeah, I guess it's a putty, epoxy, whatever you want to call it, is you've got quite a bit of working time. So you can see I had a few low spots in my pattern, and I've gone ahead and taken just a little bit of excess putty and put some extra on those low spots. And then all I'm gonna do is go over it and flatten it back out. In between each pattern press, I am taking my patterned roller over to the sink and using a wire brush just to make sure I get all of the putty out of the little details, just to make sure my pattern stays as solid as possible. I don't want to get any little clay pieces stuck in there and allowed to dry. So the wood putty that I stamped on the drawer is all hard now. It's dried overnight. So what I want to do now is just sand around the edges just to clean it up a little bit. And I haven't really decided if I'm going to sand the top or not. I kind of like the way it's got the wood like lines in it, and that's from the wood grain on the rolling pin. I kind of like that, and I think I'm gonna leave it. So I think I'm just gonna leave it alone. But I do want to sand around the edges just to clean those up.
Okay, so now this is all cleaned up, so it's time to paint. I'm using Dixie Belle's Sawmill Gravy. And I really like this paint. I decided instead of using my mister, there's my cat again. Instead of using my mister this time, I poured some into a Tupperware container and then added some water to it. And I think this is a really good way to use this Dixie Belle paint. It thins it out just enough that it goes on really, really smooth. And I noticed even on the dresser frame that I had a huge difference in not having brush strokes. It made it go on a lot smoother, and then the coverage was excellent as well. So I think I will use this method going forward when I'm using Dixie Belle paint. Oops, just a couple little drips there. And then I'm using my mini chalk brush to make sure that I'm getting in all those little intricate details that are stamped into the drawer front. At the end of the day, I ended up using 2 coats of the Dixie Belle paint on all the drawer fronts, and then 2 coats of paint on the drawer frames on top of the primer that I had already applied on the drawer frames. I knew I wasn't going to be able to use a paintbrush or any kind of tool to get the finish onto the drawer fronts with all the intricate detail. So I decided to spray on using this Rust-Oleum clear spray in a satin finish. And for the final step, I decided to add to the dresser case Dixie Belle's Big Mama's Butta in Orange Grove. I've seen and heard so many good things about this finish that I decided to try it for myself, and it really did go on smooth as butter and really gave a nice, beautiful sheen to the finished product. And of course, because it was Orange Grove, it smelled amazing. Just a reminder, here's what we started with and the final review.